My name is Elise, and from the moment I was born, I was the unwanted twin, eclipsed by my sister Sophie's blinding light. In our Burlington home, I was less than a shadow, banished to a dank destined basement, my existence a burden. "You'll never be her, Elise," my mother spat, her words a whip across my heart. This is the story of a girl forged in neglect, who clawed her way from icy despair to seize her own destiny, proving that even the forgotten can burn brighter than the sun. I was born in Burlington, a small town in Vermont. I have a twin sister named Sophie, and if I was the shadow, she was the spotlight. Even on the day we were born, my mom would proudly laugh and say, "Sophie cried first, so I knew she was the stronger one." That boast, repeated at every family gathering, stung like a fresh wound, as if my silence at birth marked me as lesser. That seemingly harmless sentence turned out to foreshadow a childhood drowned in coldness and neglect. Sophie had her own upstairs bedroom painted lavender with lace-trimmed curtains, a white wooden bed frame, and a closet always full of new dresses. Me? I slept in the basement. Every time I walked down the creaky wooden stairs, the hinges groaned like a reminder. The damp air clung to my skin, and a single cracked window let in slivers of gray light, barely enough to chase away the gloom. This wasn't a place for a child. It was a storage space made livable. Damp walls, low ceiling, the smell of dust, and cold air. That's where I grew up. There wasn't a single family photo where I stood in the center. In every snapshot, Sophie beamed in Mom's arms while I lingered at the edge, my eyes downcast, as if I knew I didn't belong. On our 12th birthday, my parents threw a backyard party full of balloons and cake for Sophie. The air buzzed with music and the scent of sugary frosting, all celebrating her radiance. I stood by the fence with a paper plate, eating the smallest slice of cake, and heard someone ask my mom, "What about that other girl?" My mom just laughed. "Oh, that's Elise. She's quiet, not into all this noise. She prefers to stay out of the," she added with a shrug, her words slicing through me like glass. No one ever asked what I liked. At school, I studied hard and always ranked near the top. The first time I got a district math award, I rushed home and held it out to my dad. He glanced at it and nodded. "Yeah, okay, but you should learn more from Sophie. She's outgoing and bubbly. That's the kind of personality people want." "Awards don't make you likable, Elise," he said, tossing the certificate aside. "Sophie's got the real spark." I gripped the certificate so hard the edge tore. Sophie joined cheerleading, theater, and photography club. My parents attended every performance, always sitting in the front row. Their cheers for Sophie's every move echoed through the auditorium while I scrubbed paint from props backstage. Here, on the floor. Me, if I participated at all, it was usually cleaning up after a club event. No one remembered to invite my parents. Sophie got new clothes every holiday, a winter ball gown, sweaters for Thanksgiving, Nike sneakers for each new school year. I wore old t-shirts from a cousin in Maine, 2 sizes too big, with a stretched-out collar and logos from a team I'd never heard of. Once I asked Mom why I couldn't get new jeans, and she flatly said, "You don't need them. It's not like you go out much and embarrass us by asking for things you don't deserve," she snapped, her eyes narrowing. Sophie was the little princess of the house. Me, I once overheard Mom say I was the extra part we didn't plan for. I was 9, hiding behind the living room door, gripping the frame so tight my fingertips turned white. "We never wanted to," she hissed to Dad, her voice low but venomous. "Elise's a burden we can shake." I didn't cry. I was used to it by then. Every evening, I ate quickly, washed the dishes, and headed to the basement as soon as I could. Not because I didn't want to be around my family, but because every time I was there, it felt like I was sitting at a table I was never invited to. Sophie's laughter and Mom's doting filled the room, while my chair seemed to shrink beneath me. I once asked Mom quietly, "Did I do something wrong?" "Elise, always causing trouble," she added, her voice sharp as she turned her back. I understood. In this house, my very existence was an inconvenience. So, I learned not to bother anyone, even when my heart screamed to be loved. I'd curl up on my lumpy mattress, clutching a tattered book, whispering, "Someday, I'll matter to someone." I turned 17 on a gray October morning when the first autumn winds crept through the cracks in the basement. I wasn't expecting anything. No cake, no greetings, But I didn't know that would be the day I was pushed out of the home I had lived in for 17 years. The silence of my birthday was deafening, broken only by the faint hum of Sophie's music upstairs. Then Mom's voice calling out, "Elise, come up here." Her tone sounded cheerful. Strange. I climbed the stairs just in time to see Sophie holding her stomach, spinning around the dining table, shouting, "A baby! It's really a baby!" My parents stood beside her, glowing like they'd won the lottery. "Perfect girl's giving us a grandchild," Dad exclaimed, his face alight with pride. I stood at the doorway confused until my mom turned to me and nodded. "She's pregnant. We're going to be grandparents." I didn't know how to react. I glanced at Sophie, my twin sister, only 17, now about to become a mother. "You should be thrilled, Elise," Sophie said, her smile smug. "This is my moment." Then, 2 weeks later, it happened. That night, I came home from my shift at the gas station, still holding a cup of instant noodles, and saw Mom sitting in the living room looking unusually serious. She patted the seat beside her. "Elise," she began. "We've talked it over with Sophie's situation. We need to make room for the baby." I nodded slightly, unsure where this was going. She continued, "Your basement room isn't suitable. We'll move Sophie and the baby down there. It's quiet and draft-free. You'll need to give up the upstairs bedroom." I froze, "But I'm already in the basement." "I mean," she said as if it were completely normal, "you'll have to move out. We need the whole house for Sophie's new family." "Novel." I let out a dry laugh, thinking she was joking, but her face was stone serious. "You're 17 now. It's time to learn independence. Lots of teens your age work and rent their own places. I believe you can do it. You're tough enough to handle it," she said, her voice dripping with false confidence. "We're doing this for Sophie's future." "I have nowhere to go," I whispered. "There's a tent in the shed," my dad chimed in from the kitchen. "We still have that camping tent from 2 years ago's trip. It's good enough for you," he said coldly. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I didn't say anything else. Their minds were made up. As I turned away, Sophie smirked. "You'll be fine, Elise. Stop acting like a victim." Her words burned into me. That night, I dragged my one suitcase out to the backyard and set up a tent on the dry grass. The ground was hard and cold. Dew seeped through the fabric, the night air bit at my skin, and the distant howl of a dog made the loneliness sharper. I curled up in my sleeping bag, holding it tight as if it could shield me from the biting autumn wind. From inside the tent, I could still hear Sophie laughing through the open upstairs window. My parents fussed over her, took her to the doctor, decorated the nursery with pale yellow wallpaper and a shiny new crib. "This baby will have everything." Mom's voice floated out, each word a reminder of my exile. I ate instant noodles and studied by flashlight. I kept going to school, but I stopped bringing lunch. During break, I went to the library and used the microwave to heat up canned soup from the thrift market. At night, I worked at a bakery 3 blocks from home. Washed trays, mopped floors, packed pastries, anything for a few spare dollars and leftover bread. No one asked how I was doing out there. No one asked if I was cold or hungry. Just once, the bakery owner, Mr. Harold, handed me a thick, worn-out coat he no longer used. "Kid, snow's coming," he said without asking questions. But I saw his eyes were red. "No one should be left out like this," he muttered, his voice heavy with pity. I knew what I had to do. I started saving every tip, every $5.00 bill. I took him to a shoebox hidden beneath my sleeping bag. I didn't know where I'd go or when I'd have enough, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't staying in that tent forever. I wasn't going to be forgotten. Each dollar I saved was a brick in the wall I'd build to protect my future. I still remember that morning like it was yesterday. The temperature was near freezing, and my hands were too numb to press the microwave button in the library. I sat shivering by the window, watching the last leaves fall. A gust of wind slipped through the torn collar of my jacket, and I nearly broke down, but I wouldn't let myself cry. "You're not invisible," I told myself, clenching my fists. "You'll show them all." Tears would freeze before anyone saw them. After school, I dragged my feet past a bakery on the corner of Cedar and 3rd. The smell of warm bread and melting butter drifted through the thick glass. My stomach growled violently. The warm light spilling from the bakery felt like a promise of something better. I stood there, hands deep in my pockets, just meaning to look for a minute. "Can I help you?" A middle-aged man stood at the back door of the bakery, hands on hips, wearing a flour-dusted apron. He looked at me, not with pity, not with annoyance, just plainly like he'd seen 100 kids standing in that very spot before. I'm looking for a part-time job," I said softly but firmly. "I'll do anything," I added, my voice steady despite my racing heart. He nodded slowly. "Name's Harold. I need someone to wash trays and pack leftover goods at the end of the day. Doesn't pay much, but I'll cover dinner. Can you handle that?" I nodded so fast my knit hat nearly fell off. That night, I scrubbed flour-crusted pans, boxed up leftover pastries, swept the floors, wiped the windows, and stacked paper bags. Mr. Harold didn't say much, but before I left, he handed me a heavy paper bag, 2 croissants, a loaf of sandwich bread, and a bottle of apple juice. "Eat it now. Don't save it. Bread's best when it's warm." "You've got fire in you, kid," he said gruffly. "Don't let it go out." I sat on the back steps of the bakery, feeling my stomach truly full for the first time in weeks. I worked every evening without fail at 5 o'clock sharp. I'd be there, never missing a shift. Mr. Harold slowly began to talk more. He told me the bakery Morning Glow Bakery was passed down from his father, that he once went bankrupt because he trusted the wrong friend, and that he never threw away edible bread because he had once lived in a truck, for a long time. "The world's cruel, Elise," he said one night, wiping flour from his hands. "But you're stronger than it." One evening, as I was packing loaves into paper bags, he asked, "Elise, where are you staying?" I hesitated, then quietly said, "I live in a tent in my parents' backyard." He quieted. He was silent for a few seconds. "That's not okay. It's freezing out there." "No kid deserves that kind of cruelty," he said, his voice tight with anger. I didn't respond. He didn't ask again. 3 days later, after closing up, he handed me a small key. "There's a room upstairs. It used to be storage, but now it's just got a few empty boxes. If you want, you can sleep there. It's not much, but it has heat and electricity." I froze for a few seconds. I didn't know what to say, so I just bowed my head. "I'll keep it clean, I promise." "Harold, I don't know how to thank you," I whispered, my voice breaking. The room really was small, just enough space for an old mattress and a chipped wooden desk. A faded curtain fluttered at the window, and the warmth of the heater felt like a hug, but compared to the cold, hard ground and nightly wind, it was heaven. From that day on, my life found a new rhythm. School in the morning, bakery in the afternoon, homework and sleep in the tiny attic room above Morning Glow Bakery. I began tracking my income, budgeting my spending, dividing money into small envelopes. Food, savings, emergencies. Harold taught me that money is a tool, Elise, not salvation, not the enemy. Use it right and you'll protect yourself. "You're crafting your own destiny," he said, watching me count my earnings. "Don't let anyone steal it." He didn't pat shoulders or give flowery praise, but every time I carefully wrapped bread, wiped down the tables, or neatly balanced the books, he'd give a small nod. That alone made me feel like I mattered. I saved every dollar, used coupons, picked up day-old goods from the thrift market. On nights I still had energy, I shoveled snow for the hair salon nearby, or helped stock shelves at the local market. I was no longer the lost girl behind a house. I was rewriting my story page by page, and I knew this was just the first chapter. Each task I completed felt like a defiance of the family that cast me out. I bought my first house in the summer of my 22nd year. It wasn't a grand home, with a wide porch and white fence, or a rose garden like the ones I used to cut out from old magazines, but to me it was a dream come true. A single-story brick house in the suburbs of Concord, New Hampshire, with 2 bedrooms, a small living room, and a front yard just big enough for pots of yellow chrysanthemums. The moment I held the deed, my heart pounded with triumph, as if I'd conquered an empire. I remember exactly how it felt to hold the keys for the first time. My hand trembled as I slid the key into the lock. The door creaked open, releasing the scent of old wood and sun-drenched dust. I stepped inside, overwhelmed by the strange blend of freedom and fear. No more pounding on the door from my mother, no more cold stares from my father, or Sophie's laughter echoing from across the hallway. Just me and this quiet space. I stood in the empty living room, whispering, "This is my sanctuary. No one can touch it." Everything I had now was the result of years of tireless work. After high school, I took online classes at night while working at the bakery during the day and helping at a local library on weekends. Harold, my quiet mentor, watched over every step. When I told him the bank approved my mortgage, he just smiled and handed me a box of pastries with a handwritten note. "The only time I'll support someone leaving Morning Glow Bakery. You've built a castle, Elise," he said, his eyes misty. "Wear it proudly." The house I bought wasn't new or fancy by anyone else's standards. The walls still had floral wallpaper from the 1970s, and the carpet was a dull gray. But I loved every scratch on the window pane, every chipped brick on the front step. Each flaw reminded me I made it here on my own. I started with an old mattress, a secondhand wooden table I found online, and a budget set of pots from the supermarket. Every item I brought home made me proud. I didn't need much, just enough to live and know that for the first time in my life, no one could take this away from me. I still worked at Morning Glow Bakery every morning and spent my evenings fixing up the house, repairing leaking pipes, repairing walls, building bookshelves. Each brushstroke on the walls felt like erasing the pain of my past. I learned from tutorials and sometimes got help from neighbors like Clara, an elderly woman who brought over baked goods and stories from her youth. "You're a warrior, Elise," Clara said, her voice warm as she handed me a pie. "This house is your victory." Or Liam, a college student living with his stepmom who sometimes helped me move heavy furniture. "You're unstoppable," Liam said, grinning as we hauled a couch. "This place is epic." But I never invited anyone inside. The house was sacred, proof of everything I had endured and overcome. One early June evening, as I sat on the front step sipping iced tea and watching the sunset, I got a call from an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. The voice on the other end made my heart skip. "Elise, it's Mom." I said nothing. "We heard you bought a house," she continued, voice light as a breeze. "We should see each other. May your father and Sophie. We should see each other. You've made us so proud, darling," she said, her tones syrupy and false. I heard Sophie's laugh in the background, as cheerful as ever, but it no longer made my chest tighten. "I'm busy," I replied shortly. "I just want you to know, no matter what, you're still part of the family." "We've always loved you, Elise," she insisted. "Don't turn your back on us. Family?" That word almost made me laugh. I hung up without another word, sitting there in the golden light of the porch. I realized something. I was no longer the trembling girl in a tent staring through a window at someone else's dinner. I had my own kitchen, my own bed, and most importantly, my own voice. I gripped my glass, muttering, "You don't get to claim me now." I was mowing the lawn on a Saturday afternoon when I heard brakes screech outside the gate. I looked up and saw a familiar silver SUV parked at the curb. For a second, my chest tightened. My father stepped out first, more gray-meathered than I remembered, but his eyes still cold and proud. Hangs, my mother, holding a canvas bag, wearing a smile I'd never seen directed at me. Then Emma. She wore a tight shirt carrying her youngest, trailed by two other kids, racing across my lawn. A strange man, probably Emma's husband, got out last, surveying the house like he was sizing up an investment. I turned off the mower, wiped my hands on my jeans, and watched them walk up. "Laura," my mother chirped. "We dropped by out of the blue. Hope you don't mind. You've done so well for yourself," she gushed, her smile forced and brittle. I didn't respond. I looked at her, then at my father. "We heard you have your own place now," Dad said, arms crossed. "We're all proud. Our little girl's grown up." "You've surprised us, Elise," he said, his tone laced with condescension. "What do you mean?" I asked calmly. "Lee's thing's having a hard time," my mother said quickly. "Her place is too small and she's pregnant with her fourth. We lost our retirement checks and can't afford the old apartment. So we thought maybe it's time the family came together, lived under one roof, supported each other like a real family. It's your duty to help us," she pressed, stepping closer. "We're your blood." I laughed. Not loud, not bitter, just a dry little lad. "Together," I repeated. "The last time we were together, you threw me out to make space for Sophie. I slept in a tent in the snow. You all had dinner and threw her a baby shower. That's a support. Don't dwell on the past," my mom snapped, flitzing, trying to stay composed. "Every family makes mistakes, but now you have a house and stability. We just want to live with you and start over." You owe us for raising you, she hissed, her facade cracking. No, I said clearly. I don't know any of you, and this house isn't a hotel. Emma stepped up, frowning. Elise, that's selfish. I'm your sister. My kids need a stable home. Don't you care at all? You're heartless, she shouted, her voice shrill. This house could save us. I looked her in the eye. When I was 17 and shivering in that tent, did you ever ask if I was cold, hungry, or were you too busy showing off your new crib in what used to be my room? Her husband chimed in. Hey, no need to be harsh. We won't stay long, just a few months. Let's talk this out like adults, he said, his smile oily and insincere. I turned to him, my voice icy. Who are you? Mark, Emma's husband, he said, offering his hand. I'm sure we can work something out. I didn't shake his hand. There's nothing to work out. Silence fell. My mom forced a smile, tugging at her shirt. Elise, we're blood. How long do you think you can live alone in this house? You'll get lonely, and when you do, family is all you'll have left. You'll come crawling back, she sneered. I looked at her and the memories crashed down. Being kicked out of bed, sent to the backyard, the sound of the door locking, Sophie's laughter in the room I once called home. I used to believe that, I said. That family was everything. But here's what I've learned. Family isn't who gives birth to you, it's who doesn't leave you out in the cold. I opened the gate and pointed outside. Get off my property! From now on, this is the boundary. Emma flushed. My mom froze. My father stepped back like he couldn't believe I dared say it. You'll regret this, Elise, my mother hissed. You can't deny your blood forever. Blood doesn't grant you access to my home, I replied and slammed the gate shut. The metal clanged like a gavel, sealing my resolve. I stood still for a long moment, listening as the engine started and faded into the distance. My heart pounded, my hands still shook, but I felt light. I'm free, I whispered to the empty lawn, the weight of years lifting. A week after I forced them off my property, a thick envelope arrived at my address. It was a letter from the law office representing my parents. They had officially filed a lawsuit demanding a shared ownership of the house I lived in. Their reasoning? The family property was purchased with shared funds and contributions from multiple members. The accusation felt like a betrayal carved in ink, claiming my sweat and tears as theirs. I read the letter over and over, each word cutting like a dull blade. This house? It came from baking at dawn before the sun rose. From every dollar I saved, scrubbing floors, hauling flour, shoveling snow, mowing lawns, from nights spent shivering in the bakery attic, hugging an online textbook and dreaming of a real home. And now they dared to say it belonged to the family. I didn't freeze or cry like I used to. I grabbed my phone and called a law office Harold once recommended, people who had helped him with a contract dispute. The attorney was a sharp, non-nonsense black woman in her 40s named Carla Bennett. After reviewing the file, she frowned. They won't go down easy. But if you have proof you independently paid for the house, we can flip this case. They're scavengers, Elise, she said, her voice fierce. We'll tear their lies apart. I nodded. I've kept everything. Pay stubs, transfer receipts, savings laws, even the bank's loan approval email. Carla leaned back, her eyes lighting up. Good. But one more thing. I want to check your great-uncle's estate. If he's the only one who ever truly cared about you, there's a chance he left something in your name. I stayed quiet for a moment, then whispered, No one's ever told me anything about that, Carla shrugged. Then we'll find out. Let's unearth their secrets, she said, a glint of determination in her eyes. 2 weeks later, she called me into her office and placed a thick file on the desk. Sit tight, she said, completely serious. According to the legal documents, my great-uncle had left me a savings account of over $60,000, 0 cents, clearly stated in his will to be transferred only when I turned 18. However, within a year of his passing, all of it had been withdrawn. The authorized signature, my mother Helen. I reviewed the bank records, Carla continued. The entire amount was moved into a joint account under your parents' names, then gradually used to pay off their mortgage debt, fund Emma's wedding, and support Mark's startup, your sister's husband. I went numb. Oh, I whispered. They let me sleep in a tent while spending the money my great-uncle left for me. They robbed me blind, I said, my voice trembling with rage. Carla nodded slowly. They embezzled your inheritance, and here's the important part. Your great-uncle explicitly wrote in his will that Elise should not be financially dependent on her parents if they failed to legally care for her. He saw this coming. He loved you, Elise, Carla said softly. They tried to protect you. The feeling wasn't rage, it was something colder. Emptiness. The kind that hits when you realize the people who once called themselves family could be that calculated. Can we sue them? I asked, my voice rough. Carla didn't answer right away. She slid a document across the desk. This is a civil suit for inheritance theft and will fraud. If you're ready to fight, I'll go all the way with you. Let's make them regret crossing you, she said, her voice like steel. I signed without hesitation. The case was filed with the county court a week later. I knew the papers had arrived because Ava, my cousin and the only one who still spoke to me, sent a short message. Mom's panicking. Dad's calling every lawyer he knows. They're calling you a monster, Ava wrote. But I know you're right. I didn't reply. What followed was a full-on legal storm. My family tried everything to smear me. That I was poor but greedy, ungrateful, making things up to grab more than I deserved. Their lawyers spun tales of my disloyalty, painting me as a schemer who betrayed her own blood. But for every lie they launched, Carla countered with a stack of proof. Bank statements, mortgage documents, handwritten notes from my great-uncle, even a photo of me curled up in the backyard tent taken by a former neighbor who once considered calling child services. The final hearing took place on a rainy Tuesday afternoon in a modest courtroom in Merrimack County. I wore the white button-up shirt Harold had bought me when I landed my first job at the bakery, a quiet reminder that I wasn't walking into this alone. My parents sat on the other side of the room, tense, avoiding eye contact. Emma wasn't there, but their lawyer, a silver-haired man with polished words that tried to justify the unjustifiable, was. He glared at me, whispering to Mom, "She's nothing without us." I sat beside Carla, gripping my file. I wasn't afraid like I thought I'd be. I had survived winter in a tent, climbed from bakery floors to home ownership. No one here could shake me now. When the judge read the verdict, the room went still. Time seemed to freeze. After a full review of the evidence, including the original will, financial transaction records, and related testimonies, the court orders the defendants, Richard and Helen Thornton, to repay the full inheritance amount of $63,000, 0 cents to the plaintiff, along with $18.00 in damages. My father lowered his head. My mother opened her mouth as if to protest, but no words came. "This is an outrage," she hissed, her voice shaking, but the judge's stern look silenced her. And from this point forward, the judge added, the defendants have no legal claim to the plaintiff's current property. I didn't cry. I took a deep breath and let the cold courtroom air wash over every old wound. Outside, Carla gave my shoulder a gentle tap. "You did it, Elise. You've slain the dragon," she said, smiling fiercely. "Now live your truth." I nodded, smiling faintly. Not because I won, but because for the first time in my life, I felt free. Oh. In the days that followed, the calls poured in. Some from Mom, a few from Emma, and most surprisingly, a short message from my father. "Can we talk?" I read it, then deleted it. No reply. "We're your family, Elise," Mom's voicemail begged. "Don't throw us away." But her words rang hollow like a performance. I knew what talking with them meant. It was always a monologue where they were right, and I was the problem. I no longer felt the need to apologize for existing. I no longer needed approval from people who never saw me as a daughter, a sister, or even a person. I blocked all their numbers, changed my email, and for the first time, I wrote a letter to myself. In it, I wrote, "You're not the extra piece. You're the gift that was misplaced." I folded the letter and placed it in my great-uncle's old wooden box, the one that held the only keepsakes I still own. I sealed it with a vow. You are enough. That letter wasn't meant to be read again. It was simply the final punctuation to a chapter that had gone on too long. As time passed, I returned to my routine, baking in the early mornings, studying in the evenings, and spending quiet afternoons on my porch with a cup of hot tea. Harold had retired, but still dropped by once a month with cookies and his warm smile. "This house smells like victory," he liked to joke. You're a legend in this town, Elise, he said, munching a cookie. You've written the rules. I also started hosting weekend baking classes for kids in the neighborhood, something I never thought I'd do. Every time I saw their tiny hands kneading dough and giggling, I remembered the days I wished someone had taught me how not to burn the tart crust. Now, I was that person, the one I had needed. One day while cleaning up after class, a curly-haired little girl walked up and asked, "Miss Elise, does your family like your baking?" "Miss Elise, does your family no, you said? But now I have a different kind of family. One that knows how to love, right?" "You're our family now, Miss Elise," she said, her eyes bright and my heart soared. Family? I used to think it was something fixed, unchangeable, but I've come to learn family isn't who shares your blood. It's who doesn't abandon you in the cold, who doesn't steal your chance to live and call it sacrifice. Family is who stays when everyone else walks away, and now I am exactly where I'm meant to be. In the end, I truly lived. My story isn't just about surviving abandonment. It's proof that pain isn't the ending. I learned to rise from nothing, build my life with my own hands, and redefine what family means. Blood doesn't guarantee love, and sometimes to live fully, you have to let go of the most toxic ties. I'm no longer the girl left behind. I'm the one writing a brand new chapter for herself. My scars are my story, my home, my triumph, and my future. Mine to shape. Elise's journey is a testament to the strength found in breaking free. Her decision to sever toxic ties and build a life on her own terms teaches us that true family is forged through love and loyalty, not obligation or blood. Pain can be a catalyst, not a chain. What do you think of Elise's choice to reclaim her life? Would you have stood as firmly in her shoes? Share your thoughts below and join our community for more gripping stories of resilience and redemption.